the vacuum energy engine. In 1983, engineer Troy Harubis claimed to have built a small engine that ran indefinitely using vacuum energy, a form of energy theorized to exist in empty space. The device, roughly the size of a shoebox, used magnets, copper coils, and titanium plates to generate a self-sustaining rotation. Harubis said the engine worked by creating a vacuum inversion chamber where opposing magnetic fields produced a continuous pressure differential, allowing the flywheel to spin without external fuel or electricity. Witnesses reported the engine powered itself and could drive small mechanical systems. Shortly after public demonstrations, his workshop burned down in an unexplained electrical fire, destroying the engine. No independent tests were conducted, and subsequent attempts to rebuild it failed due to missing schematics and interference. The engine's disappearance left only witness accounts and Harubis's patents, making it an unresolved example of a claimed free energy device.
The anti-gravity engine. In the 1950s, a small research group in Nazi Germany reportedly developed a propulsion system capable of defying gravity. The device utilized a spinning, magnetically charged disc enclosed in a vacuum chamber. Test reports claimed the engine could lift several tons without traditional fuel, producing a silent and smooth ascent. Allied forces seized the blueprints and prototypes at the end of the war, but official records were classified and scientists involved vanished. The few surviving notes suggest the engine relied on manipulating the Higgs field locally, an idea decades ahead of its time. Attempts to replicate the effect in later decades produced only partial, unstable results, and many experimental labs investigating anti-gravity phenomena reported mysterious fires, disappearances, or sudden confiscations of equipment, hinting at deliberate suppression of the technology.
The Curian Bofield camera. In 1939, Seaman Curian and his wife Valentina in a small Soviet lab noticed a patient's body emitted brief, distinct light when touching high-voltage circuits. Replicating this with photographic plates, they captured leaves, insects, and human fingertips surrounded by glowing halos. The phenomenon persisted even on insulating materials, suggesting a living energy field invisible to the naked eye. Emotional stress and illness affected the aura's intensity, and the phantom leaf effect showed missing portions of leaves still faintly glowing, as if the form existed in another dimension. Soviet medical institutes briefly explored this as a diagnostic tool, including early cancer detection, but interest waned due to associations with mysticism and spiritual energy. Western scientists dismissed it as electrostatic artifacts. Original equipment was largely confiscated, destroyed, or lost, and the Curians died in obscurity. Modern versions exist in alternative health circles, but none reproduce the full effect publicly.
The Nazi Bell. In 1944, a secret Nazi lab in Lower Silesia housed a bell-shaped device 9 feet tall and 5 feet wide, made from a metal alloy unknown to modern metallurgy. Inside, 2 counter-rotating cylinders contained a mercury-like substance called Zerum-525, which generated strong electromagnetic fields. Villagers reported blackouts, violet flashes, and mutated plants and animals. Workers reportedly died under mysterious circumstances, their bodies allegedly petrified or liquefied. The bell was part of anti-gravity and temporal manipulation experiments. Decades later, Polish researcher Igor Witkowski uncovered documents showing diagrams of the bell atop stone platforms with runic symbols, hinting at a fusion of occult and scientific theory. By 1945, Allied troops found the bell missing, but radiation traces and scorched markings indicated high-energy experiments. Some believe it was absorbed into post-war black projects, fueling legends of a lost time-manipulating device that could have drastically altered modern technology.
The Soviet psychic spy machine. During the Cold War, Soviet scientists reportedly developed a device capable of amplifying psychic abilities for espionage. Known only through fragmented intelligence reports, the machine combined electromagnetic field generators with sensory deprivation chambers to enhance extrasensory perception. Test subjects were said to accurately locate hidden objects, read thoughts at short distances, and even influence decisions remotely. Prototypes were destroyed after several volunteers suffered severe neurological symptoms, including prolonged hallucinations, dissociation, and memory loss. Western intelligence agencies monitored the program closely, confiscating any research that surfaced. Surviving notes hint the technology may have interacted with what the Soviets called the human informational field, suggesting early experimentation in non-local consciousness. The Montauk Project Time Experiments. In a secretive Long Island facility during the 1970s, U.S. government contractors allegedly conducted experiments in time manipulation and teleportation. Using massive particle accelerators, electromagnetic field generators, and Tesla-inspired technology, the experiments reportedly opened temporary portals through which objects and personnel could vanish or reappear. Some participants claimed to witness future events or interact with beings from alternate realities. Incidents included severe physical and psychological trauma, mysterious disappearances, and sudden structural anomalies within the lab. The facility was officially closed, sealed, and all documentation classified. Leaked testimonies suggest the experiments were not merely theoretical. Equipment logs, partially destroyed, indicate that temporal displacement may have occurred, though outcomes were unstable and hazardous.
The water fuel cell. In the early 1990s, inventor Stanley Meyer claimed to have built a system that allowed a car engine to run on water by splitting it into hydrogen and oxygen and burning the hydrogen as fuel. Under normal conditions, this process requires more electrical energy than it produces, making it impractical. Meyer argued that his system avoided this limitation by using high-voltage, low-current electrical pulses tuned to specific frequencies. According to him, these pulses weakened the bond between hydrogen and oxygen, reducing the energy required to separate them, a claim that directly contradicted established thermodynamics. He patented the design and publicly demonstrated a modified vehicle that appeared to run while carrying only water. However, no independent testing ever confirmed that the system produced excess energy or violated known physical laws. After Meyer's death in 1998, the prototypes disappeared, the patents expired, and later attempts to recreate the system failed due to missing or incomplete technical details. The invention was never successfully reproduced. The Dimensional Signal Scanner. In 1996, a private team in a Cold War bunker in the Ural Mountains activated an array of cryogenically cooled radio sensors and directional field emitters to detect low-frequency anomalies. During the third week, the scanner recorded a burst of ultra-low-frequency oscillations with irregular harmonics that matched no known physical source. Rendered visually, the waveform resembled a fractal spiral, repeating without exact duplication. Attempts to capture the signal digitally failed. Only analog components responded. The team concluded the signals might be probes intersecting our reality from adjacent dimensions. After a week of repeated anomalies, power failed, and part of the scanner burned. Lead researcher Pav Morose disappeared. Fragments later analyzed suggested patterns resembling Calabi-Yau manifolds, hinting at hidden layers of reality. The signals imply that reality may be porous, momentarily crossed by phenomena beyond conventional physics.
Shape-shifting aircraft. In December 1944, radar operators reported a craft moving at impossible angles near the French border. Pilots described a silent, reflective object changing shape mid-flight. Nazi files indicate it was part of Project Silver Spiegel. The aircraft's body used flexible metallic plates over ferrofluid and reactive polymers, allowing in-flight morphing. It had no conventional wings. Internal magnetic turbines provided lift without combustion. Radar invisibility was achieved through adaptive surfaces bending and refracting light. Test flights succeeded twice, but the third vanished, leaving no wreckage. Materials were analyzed in post-war labs, but remained unreplicable. If functional, the aircraft would have redefined aerodynamics and stealth, suggesting Nazi engineers experimented with technologies far beyond contemporary aviation, combining adaptive materials, magnetic propulsion, radar cloaking, and shape-shifting mechanics decades ahead of their time. The Eastern Air Cleaner. In the early 1990s, engineers in Eastern Europe developed a prototype air purification system called the Eastern Air Cleaner. It was designed to remove not only dust and smoke, but also toxic chemicals, industrial pollutants, and airborne pathogens from enclosed spaces, potentially revolutionizing indoor air quality and public health. The device combined electrostatic fields with cold plasma technology. Rather than trapping particles in filters, it altered their electrical charge and broke down their molecular structure, preventing secondary emissions. This allowed the system to operate continuously with minimal power without the need for costly filter replacements, and silently enough for everyday use in homes, schools, and hospitals. Independent tests reportedly showed rapid removal of substances like benzene, formaldehyde, and fine particulate matter. Early demonstrations impressed environmental agencies and private organizations alike, but despite the promise, development stopped abruptly. The project was ultimately shut down due to regulatory and patent complications, and key technical details were never released. No working prototype remains publicly available, and attempts to reproduce the system have failed due to missing schematics and incomplete designs. The Eastern Air Cleaner remains a tantalizing what could have been in environmental technology, a reminder of how breakthroughs can vanish before reaching the public.
The Viking Sunstone. Around 1000 CE, Viking navigators used a device capable of locating the sun through heavy clouds of fog. The sunstone is a crystal of Iceland spar, which splits light into two beams. By rotating the crystal and observing when the beams equalized, Vikings could detect the sun's position even when invisible. This exploits sunlight polarization, which remains detectable under cloud cover. Saga accounts describe sunstones being used to find the sun during overcast conditions. Archaeologists dismissed these accounts as legend. In 1967, Thorold Ramsco suggested the crystals were optical instruments. This theory gained support in 2013 when the Alderney shipwreck revealed a block of Iceland spar alongside navigational dividers. Vikings used polarization to detect the sun without sight. Magnetic compasses existed in Europe, but were unreliable near iron deposits or if demagnetized. Sunstones provided a backup, demonstrating empirical understanding of light polarization and navigation centuries ahead of Western Europe. The Olmec magnetite compass. Around 1000 BCE, the Olmec civilization created a functional magnetic alignment device in Mesoamerica. The artifact, known as M160, is a polished bar of magnetite shaped with careful symmetry and carved with a straight groove along its length. When floated on water or mercury, the bar consistently aligns to a fixed magnetic orientation. The groove acts as a sighting line, allowing directional referencing. Measurements show the alignment matches the orientation of Olmec ceremonial sites when corrected for ancient magnetic pole drift. This confirms intentional use rather than decorative purpose. Plasma railgun. In late 1944, engineers near Breslau developed an electromagnetic artillery system firing projectiles at hypersonic speeds. Superconducting coils and plasma channels accelerated shells without conventional explosives, allowing them to penetrate armor effortlessly. Cooling systems used liquid nitrogen to prevent overheating, and test rounds generated electromagnetic interference miles away. Precision targeting
used early analog computing linked to magnetic guidance rails, demonstrating advanced ballistic calculations. Allied forces never recovered a full prototype, but schematics suggest capabilities surpassing even 21st-century railguns. The project's secrecy likely influenced post-war weapons research, hiding potentially transformative technology.
The Vatican Chronovisor. In the 1950s CE, Benedictine monk and physicist Father Pellegrino Ernetti claimed to have helped build a device called the Chronovisor, capable of viewing past events. Ernetti worked with 12 scientists, including Enrico Fermi and Werner Braun. The chronovisor operated on the principle that energy is never destroyed. All light and sound waves ever emitted persist in the ether. By tuning into these residual waves, the device reconstructed historical events like a television broadcast. Ernetti reported observing the Roman Senate in 63 BCE, a lost tragedy by Quintus Ennius, and the crucifixion of Jesus in 33 CE. He even produced a photograph of Christ's face as proof. The Vatican reportedly dismantled the device, fearing the ethical and political implications of observing private moments throughout history. Skeptics call it a hoax, but Ernetti insisted on its authenticity until his death.
Liquid armor. In 1945, a Nazi lab tested a revolutionary suit that flowed like water but hardened instantly under impact. Known as Project Stahl, it used a non-Newtonian fluid with magnetic nanoparticles. Rubber bullets and heavy weights were deflected as the particles aligned to disperse energy across the surface. The armor shimmered like oil, remained flexible after impact, and was never mass-produced. Allied forces found only empty vats and a single armored glove. OSS records indicate the compound degraded in storage, preventing replication. Modern researchers developed similar fabrics decades later. The project demonstrates advanced understanding of responsive materials and kinetic energy management, showing that the Nazis had achieved practical concepts in personal defense decades ahead of modern protective equipment, ingeniously combining chemistry, magnetism, mechanics, and dynamic energy dispersion in a single wearable technology. The soul weight balance. On April 10, 1901, Dr. Duncan McDougall placed dying tuberculosis patients on an industrial scale to measure whether the human soul had mass. As patients exhaled their final breath, the scale dropped by about 21 grams. Repeated tests yielded similar results, though not with dogs, suggesting a uniquely human phenomenon. The apparatus was precise and controlled, yet his findings were ridiculed by the scientific establishment. Funding was withdrawn, equipment disappeared, and McDougall died in 1920 convinced he had observed the quantifiable departure of presence from the body. Later secret tests using digital load sensors in Germany reportedly showed momentary weight fluctuations at death, but the findings were never published. Notes suggest the departure sometimes occurred seconds before actual death, hinting at a detectable energy field rather than a spiritual claim.
The Eternal Battery. In 1973, engineer Carl Kordesh developed a prototype battery capable of running continuously for decades without needing replacement or recharge. It combined elements of alkaline chemistry with a closed-loop hydrogen system, allowing the battery to regenerate itself during operation. The design was lightweight, efficient, and resistant to extreme temperatures. Unlike conventional batteries, it required minimal maintenance and avoided the environmental impact of frequent replacement. Tests suggested it could power devices for up to 50 years. Despite its potential, Kordesh's invention was shelved. Corporations and regulators expressed concern that a battery lasting longer than consumer products would disrupt planned obsolescence and reduce profits. Prototypes were stored, patents stalled, and no large-scale production ever occurred.
The Emotion Field Recorder. In 1987, the British Society for Psychical Research investigated a farmhouse in North Yorkshire reporting intense emotional disturbances. Using a specialized device detecting low-frequency vibrations and electromagnetic fluctuations tied to human emotions, researchers mapped a resonant emotional lattice across the property. At precisely 2:46 a.m., spikes in the field coincided with sudden temperature drops and light anomalies captured on cameras. Observers reported intrusive memories and visions of past events. Repeated tests revealed looping spiral patterns of energy anchored to specific locations. Attempts to reproduce results under controlled conditions were deemed impossible. The original device was seized, and the farmhouse purchased by private security. Subsequent experiments at battlefields and old hospitals produced similar but weaker effects, supporting the theory that strong emotional events imprint onto physical space, creating persistent, reactivatable echoes of past trauma.
The Baghdad Battery. Around 200 BCE, a ceramic vessel from the Parthian period functioned as a primitive electrical cell. The container holds a copper cylinder insulated from an iron rod by a layer of asphalt. When filled with an acidic liquid, a chemical reaction produces an electrical potential as electrons move between the two metals. Replicated versions generate measurable voltage. This configuration follows the principles of a galvanic cell. The insulation prevents short-circuiting, and the metal pairing is optimized for sustained electron flow rather than storage. Experimental reconstructions demonstrate the device can perform electroplating, explaining ancient metal artifacts coated with uniform layers too thin to be mechanically applied. The voltage output increases when multiple vessels are connected in series, allowing sustained current over longer periods.
The Inca obsidian mirrors. In 1400 CE, high in the Andes, the Inca Empire controlled vast territory with no written language and no horses. They polished volcanic obsidian into flat circular mirrors, which were not for vanity, but served practical and ceremonial purposes. These mirrors could reflect light across mountain valleys, acting as long-distance signaling devices. By aligning mirrors between peaks, a flash could be seen dozens of miles away, allowing messages to travel faster than runners. Some mirrors were concave and ground to precise focal points, forming acoustic couplers. Whispering into one mirror would project the sound to the focal point of a second mirror hundreds of feet away. This allowed secure, long-distance communication that seemed almost supernatural. The Inca combined optical and acoustic technology, giving the Inca the ability to observe, transmit, and monitor their empire efficiently, demonstrating an advanced understanding of physics and engineering.
The eternal light bulb. In 1901, a light bulb known today as the Centennial bulb was installed in a fire station in Livermore, California, and it has been glowing ever since. Unlike modern bulbs, it uses a carbon filament and produces low-intensity light, which greatly reduces wear on the filament. Early bulbs were built with thicker filaments, hand-blown glass, and conservative power levels, allowing them to last for decades. These bulbs prove that long-lasting lighting was possible even with early manufacturing techniques. By 1924, major light bulb manufacturers formed the Phoebus cartel, agreeing to standardize bulb lifespans to around 1,000 hours by deliberately altering filament design and operating conditions. This marked one of the earliest examples of planned obsolescence in consumer electronics. While the Centennial bulb continues to function today, most modern bulbs are designed to fail sooner, ensuring repeat sales and constant replacement cycles.
The Tesla consciousness lens. In 1895, Nikola Tesla in New York tested a lens apparatus embedded in high-frequency resonance fields, theorizing human thought emitted subtle oscillations detectable without a body. Using bismuth crystals, polarized quartz, and spiraled metal discs between Tesla coils, the lens captured a flickering anomaly, a pulsing blur, suggesting consciousness might be an external force the brain receives or amplifies. After seeing this, Tesla collapsed and sealed the device. Decades later, recovered diagrams show similarities to modern quantum resonance imaging and zero-point field detection. The FBI confiscated related papers in 1943, but witnesses reported an unlogged wooden crate removed from his hotel. Whether Tesla saw a disembodied thought form or a membrane between realities remains unknown.
The Illness Prediction Scanner. In 2009, engineers in Geneva developed the neuroscope, capable of scanning a person's electromagnetic field to detect diseases before symptoms appeared. It analyzed biofrequency patterns against a database of disease markers. Early trials reportedly identified cancers, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and chronic illnesses weeks or months before conventional tests. The system required no blood tests, X-rays, or MRIs. Despite interest from hospitals and the WHO, the project was shut down. Licenses were suspended, servers seized, and manufacturing canceled. Independent replication failed due to missing components. The neuroscope remains a potentially revolutionary device never brought to market.
The subconscious translator. In 2014, a Kyoto research facility developed a prototype capable of visual reconstruction of dreams using real-time fMRI and machine learning trained on thousands of visual stimuli. Once predictive accuracy was achieved, participants were scanned during REM sleep, and the system generated crude yet recognizable video reconstructions of dream imagery. Some visuals depicted unknown locations or impossible scenarios, including cities never seen and abstract forms. Subjects reported experiencing languages they did not know, telepathic communication, and out-of-body perspectives. In some cases, dream content appeared to repeat across participants. The project was shut down within 6 months due to ethical concerns, but rumors suggest the final dataset was acquired by a government agency for defense-related mind interface research. The lab remains closed, leaving the full potential of dream decoding unexplored.
The electric car recall. In 1996, General Motors released the EV1, the first mass-produced electric car available to the public. It ran entirely on electricity, produced zero emissions, and included features like regenerative braking and aerodynamic design, reaching around 100 miles per charge. The EV1 was leased, not sold, so customers could not legally own it. Despite this, demand was strong, with drivers reporting high reliability, low maintenance, and smooth performance. In the early 2000s, GM abruptly ended the program. All leased vehicles were recalled, even from those willing to buy them. Most EV1s were destroyed. GM cited cost, battery limitations, and low demand, but documents later revealed that automakers lobbied to weaken emissions regulations, removing the legal pressure to continue electric vehicle production. The EV1 remains a symbol of a suppressed technology. The Tesla Power Tower. In 1901, Nikola Tesla began building the Wardenclyffe Tower to transmit electricity wirelessly using the Earth as a conductor. The system relied on high-voltage oscillations and resonance, allowing energy to travel through the ground and atmosphere instead of wires. The tower had deep grounding rods, massive coils, and a metal dome to amplify vibrations. Tesla believed that properly tuned receivers anywhere could draw power without a direct connection to a power plant. Funding from J.P. Morgan was withdrawn when Tesla revealed the system could deliver free electricity globally. Construction stopped, and by 1917, the tower was demolished. Many of Tesla's notes were lost, and no working version has ever been tested publicly.
Underground submersible train. In 1945, Allied reconnaissance discovered a subterranean network in the Owl Mountains of Poland called Project Riza. Unlike typical shelters or depots, blueprints indicated a high-speed vehicle traveling without wheels or rails. Capsules glided through vacuum-sealed tunnels using electromagnetic pulse acceleration, levitating via shock-dampened viscous gel. Air pressure chambers minimized drag, while magnetic braking systems ensured stability.
Communication lines ran through electromagnetic conduits, and emergency evacuation systems were included in the design, showing foresight for human passengers. Evidence included incomplete capsules and magnetic ring segments, but no full prototype was found. British intelligence memos deemed the system impractical, yet visionary. Modern vacuum trains like Hyperloop echo the same mechanics, suggesting the Nazis nearly achieved a rapid, silent underground network connecting key sites. Restricted areas remain today, leaving the true extent of the project uncertain.
The psychic signal amplifier. In 1993, Dr. Michael Persinger at Laurentian University in Canada built a God helmet, a neurotheological interface using solenoids to emit weak, complex magnetic fields targeting temporal lobes. Participants reported sensing a presence in the room, often emotionally charged, sometimes benevolent, sometimes ominous. The sensations were consistent across religious, atheist, and skeptical subjects. Some experienced boundary dissolution, a merging of self and environment, while others perceived layered light forms or simultaneous mental images from distant participants. Faraday cages could not block the effect, and twin studies revealed synchronous brain activity. Persinger theorized consciousness might be non-local, part of a shared electromagnetic matrix. Military documents later revealed adaptations under the codename Silent Veil for psychological operations. The helmet was dismantled, funding ceased, and Persinger passed away in 2018, leaving the phenomenon partially unexplored. The Dendera light. In 50 BCE, in the Hathor Temple at Dendera, Egypt, reliefs depict a bulb-like object suspended from the ceiling, connected to a lotus flower and a snake. These carvings have been interpreted by some as representing ancient electrical technology. Archaeologists traditionally classify them as symbolic depictions of Egyptian mythology, but the shapes resemble components of a modern electrical lamp. Some researchers suggest the bulb contains a filament-like object inside a tubular vessel, possibly a hollow clay tube acting as a containment vessel. The lotus may represent a power source, and the snake could symbolize a conductor or current flow. While controversial, experiments demonstrate that the structure could theoretically function as a low-voltage gas discharge lamp, implying ancient Egyptians may have observed or experimented with forms of electricity far earlier than commonly believed.
The Russian ghost tanks. In the late 1980s, Russian military engineers allegedly attempted to render armored vehicles invisible to radar and sight using electromagnetic cloaking. The prototype vehicles reportedly produced refractive distortions, bending light and radio waves around the hull. Initial trials claimed success at short distances, though field testing was plagued by equipment malfunctions, crew disorientation, and intermittent visibility. Subsequent government documents described the project as terminated due to uncontrollable side effects, including spatial anomalies and sudden electronic failures in surrounding equipment. The designs were reportedly archived in secret military vaults, and most surviving engineers were reassigned or disappeared. Analysts who examined the few remaining schematics noted concepts resembling later theoretical work in metamaterials and electromagnetic field manipulation, hinting the project may have been decades ahead of publicly acknowledged technology.
The magnetic motor. In the late 1970s, physicist Howard Johnson patented a magnetic motor that he claimed could spin indefinitely using only permanent magnets. The motor relied on precise arrangements of curved magnets on a rotor and stator, creating continuous rotational force without fuel, electricity, or combustion. Johnson demonstrated the motor privately to investors, journalists, and scientists. While some reported that it seemed to sustain motion, replication attempts by independent engineers failed. Observed issues included spontaneous demagnetization, unpredictable rotation, and system instability, making it nearly impossible to confirm outside his controlled demonstrations. Many scientists dismissed it, yet some enthusiasts continue to study his designs. Despite holding a patent, Johnson faced intense pressure. Offers were reportedly made to buy and bury his design, which he refused. By the late 1980s, he was out of funding, and the motor was never produced commercially. Today, it exists mostly in patent archives, technical papers, and whispered accounts, leaving behind a story of innovation stifled by circumstances beyond science, with endless speculation about whether it could have provided a clean, self-sustaining energy source.
The cross-reality oscillator. In 2009, the Hausian Array, a private Nevada facility, created a 3-meter-tall oscillator generating overlapping electromagnetic fields at subtly different frequencies to interfere across quantum thresholds. During a 2-minute, 34-second test, the chamber recorded anomalous vacuum fluctuations, particle behavior, and gravitational drift. Observers saw mannequins move independently, structural distortions, and experienced memory lapses and sensory doubling. Dr. Lena Mikhanov described seeing the control room and an alternate corridor containing a living replica of the oscillator with unknown figures. The facility was evacuated, demolished, and team members dispersed. Leaked schematics revealed resonance frequencies aligning with M-theory predictions of hidden spatial dimensions. The oscillator may have temporarily loosened reality, allowing brief intersections between parallel domains where physics is no longer consistent.
The Spirit Voice Receiver. In 1959, Friedrich Jurgensen in Sweden accidentally recorded human voices on tape while monitoring bird songs, later identified as electronic voice phenomenon, EVP. Voices were often personal, addressing him by name, including messages from deceased relatives. Using analog tape, radios, and directional microphones, Jurgensen replicated these results with precise silence, showing the voices were neither ambient nor imagined. Later European researchers like Hans Bender and collaborations with Father Ernetti expanded EVP into controlled lab environments, capturing coherent messages, sometimes in languages the experimenters did not know. Attempts to digitize failed, as modern noise filtering removed the phenomenon, suggesting the effect relied on analog static imperfections. Governments quietly withdrew funding, labs were shut down, and some teams were forcibly disbanded. EVP remains unexplained.
The quantum resonance lens. In 2022, a team of experimental physicists at a private European lab announced a device using entangled photons and ultra-high-frequency electromagnetic resonance to detect subatomic disturbances in real time. By projecting a coherent photon field through a layered crystalline lens, the system captured minute energy fluctuations, appearing as visual patterns, potentially corresponding to conscious intent or environmental memory imprints. Early experiments revealed synchronized patterns among spatially separated participants interacting with identical objects, suggesting a non-local connection between mind and matter. Peer-reviewed results remain minimal, but independent labs report partial replication of correlations between thought and energy fluctuations. The technology hints at a measurable bridge between cognition and physical reality. The Biocognitive Field Emitter. In 2023, a research group in Japan developed an experimental chamber combining pulsed electromagnetic fields with nanophotonic light arrays to stimulate and measure biological energy emissions. Volunteers exposed to the emitter exhibited measurable changes in brainwave synchronization, heart rate variability, and cellular biophoton emissions. Certain configurations reportedly amplified subjective awareness, inducing altered states similar to meditative or near-death experiences. Preliminary studies suggest participants may project subtle physiological signals across short distances, influencing other subjects in separate rooms. The device remains highly experimental, but it represents a contemporary attempt to harness and visualize the interplay between consciousness emotion, and measurable energy fields in living organisms.
Anti-gravity recon drone. In early 1945, prototypes were tested near Hamburg. Spherical drones around 2 meters in diameter used internal gyroscopes and electrogravitic lift for silent hovering and rapid directional shifts. They operated on compact energy cells linked to rotating superconducting disks, achieving long flight without fuel. Flight logs reported minimal detectability to radar and observers, hinting at espionage applications. Control relied on early analog signal modulation, allowing remote operation over several kilometers. No complete drone survived the Allied advance, but surviving blueprints show technology decades ahead of its time, blending early electrogravitics with autonomous flight principles and suggesting a practical approach to stealth reconnaissance that would not be replicated for decades.
Radar cloak scan. In 1945, a test near the Baltic Sea involved an aircraft that disappeared from radar immediately after takeoff. Project Nebelhot developed a carbon polymer surface embedded with nanoscale iron particles in precise geometric patterns. The coating absorbed radar waves and converted them to thermal energy, making aircraft nearly invisible. Engineers could electrically adjust refractive properties to adapt to frequency changes and environmental conditions. Prototypes were evacuated before Soviet capture, and no materials survived. Post-war U.S. intelligence noted sudden increases in electromagnetic stealth research, possibly derived from recovered Nazi studies. The project demonstrates a theoretical understanding of radar absorption, adaptive surfaces, and stealth materials decades before modern stealth aircraft, implying that the Third Reich explored advanced electromagnetic cloaking, metamaterial science, and adaptive aviation technologies far ahead of their time.
The Biophoton emitter.
In the early 1970s, German biophysicist Fritz Albert Popp studied ultra-weak light emissions from living cells called biophotons. Using sensitive photomultiplier tubes, he discovered that DNA and whole organisms emitted regulated light patterns seemingly with intention rather than as a chemical reaction. Emotional states influenced these emissions. Stress caused irregular pulses. Calm induced harmonic rhythms. Astonishingly, identical twins separated by distance exhibited synchronized biophoton patterns, defying conventional biology. Popp developed a shielded experimental chamber, the whisper box, where subjects reported altered perception, colors not seen by the naked eye, and memory recall beyond conscious awareness. He proposed that biophotons formed an information network connecting consciousness and biology. Attempts to replicate his work were met with resistance, equipment confiscation, and publication rejections, leaving the phenomenon largely underground in quantum biology circles.
The Antikythera Mechanism. Around 150 BCE, ancient Greek engineers constructed a mechanical device capable of calculating astronomical events across long spans of time. Recovered from a shipwreck in 1901, the Antikythera mechanism consists of a dense system of bronze gears housed in a wooden frame. Modern X-ray scans revealed more than 30 interlocking gears, each cut to precise ratios. By turning a hand crank, the user could advance or reverse time and observe the predicted positions of the sun, moon, and 5 visible planets on engraved dials. The mechanism calculated lunar phases, eclipse cycles, and planetary motion using differential gearing. A pin and slot system corrected for the moon's irregular orbit, compensating for variations in speed caused by its elliptical path. This mechanical solution models principles equivalent to later astronomical laws. The gear ratios match known astronomical cycles, including the Metonic and Saros cycles, proving deliberate mathematical design. The complexity indicates an established tradition of mechanical engineering rather than a singular experimental object.
Thought amplifier. In March 1945,
Nazis tested a helmet-like device designed to enhance cognition. Project Cam Carrier used silver filaments, quartz lenses, and copper induction rings to amplify neural impulses via oscillating magnetic fields. Tests recorded spikes in brainwave activity, hallucinations, and uncontrolled movement of small metal objects. In one case, a subject exhibited non-local memory retrieval, recalling details from others' lives. After a fatal incident, the project was abruptly shut down. Crates were sealed, never recovered, and the technology vanished. If functional, the helmet represents an early attempt at a brain-computer interface capable of externally projecting thought or amplifying mental capacity. It highlights Nazi experimentation on neurological manipulation, memory, cognition, and electromagnetic brainwave modulation, suggesting ambitions to control or enhance human thought through advanced technology previously considered science fiction.
The Lazarus field generator, allegedly developed in the 1960s at a secret European medical facility. This device aimed to stimulate lifelike energy in deceased tissue. Using high-voltage electromagnetic pulses and oscillating biofields, early tests caused partial muscle contractions and faint neural spikes hours after death. Internal documents describe uncontrolled responses, including twitches synchronized with environmental electromagnetic fluctuations, spontaneous joint movements, and faint auric glows around the body. Emotional or stress markers from prior life sometimes appeared in the energy field. Technicians reported whispers, low-frequency hums, and occasional temperature anomalies around cadavers. Surviving plates are rumored to exist only in private collections, fueling speculation about life extension, consciousness transfer, or temporary resurrection. Experimental logs suggested different cadavers reacted uniquely, implying residual bioenergy linked to past emotional states. Coal generator. In 1945, near Prague, Nazis tested a cylindrical machine called the coal generator, producing electricity silently, without combustion, fuel, or heat. Magnetic fluid in a pressurized chamber surrounded by rotating rings created current through electromagnetic fields. Resistance fighters reported icy temperatures, frost-covered walls, and malfunctioning instruments near the device. Schematics later surfaced showing a magnetic inversion chamber manipulating energy decades ahead of Western science. Contemporary physicists argue such a generator would violate thermodynamic laws, yet post-war black-budget energy projects hint that similar principles were explored secretly. If operational, the pole generator could have supplied unlimited clean power, potentially transforming industrial society. Yet its disappearance suggests deliberate suppression, possibly because the device threatened the existing fuel-based economy. Magnetic viewing device. In 1943, Nazi engineers created a telescope-like device capable of seeing through solid metal using rotating magnetic rings and black crystalline lenses. Instead of light, it worked by detecting shifts in electromagnetic resistance at the atomic level, revealing internal structures, wiring, and writing on sealed containers. Soviet reports indicate the inner lenses disintegrated on exposure to air, leaving only a magnetic ring that could not be replicated. Attempts to reverse engineer it took nearly a decade, but scientists failed. If functional, the device would have allowed surveillance through thick metals without breaching them, implying Nazi scientists discovered principles of electromagnetic vision decades ahead of modern science. Reports suggest it may have influenced secret post-war experiments in non-invasive imaging, yet no public record exists, leaving its technology shrouded in mystery.
The rain-making machine. In the 1950s, Dr. Irving Langmore and military researchers experimented with cloud seeding, dispersing silver iodide into clouds to trigger rain. Early tests worked, but neighboring regions sometimes experienced droughts, floods, or legal disputes over water rights. Farmers could benefit, yet others suffered unexpected consequences. Civilian access was restricted,
while large-scale weather modification continued under military research. Over time, secrecy shrouded many projects, and today, weather control exists mostly in classified programs. If widely available, it could have transformed agriculture, water management, and even geopolitical power, giving nations the ability to influence crops, rivers, and even military operations.
Sonic paralysis weapon. In late 1944, Nazis tested a device capable of paralyzing targets without visible injury, known as Project Shal, a wheeled audio cannon emitting infrasound resonating with internal organs, leaving subjects conscious but immobile. Test reports show victims could not move or speak, with irregular heart rhythms and neurological disturbances. The emitter used sustained frequencies between 7 and 9 Hertz, precisely tuned to disrupt the nervous system. Allied forces captured components, which were later classified and vanished from public record. Modern sonic weapons can stun or annoy, but Project Shal demonstrates Nazi research in neurological warfare far beyond contemporary capability. Its disappearance, along with vanishing witnesses, engineers, and blueprints, implies deliberate suppression of knowledge that could have revolutionized non-lethal combat technology.
The trash fuel converter. In 2003, engineers in Sao Paulo, Brazil, developed a prototype that converted household trash into high-quality liquid fuel. The system used thermal depolymerization combined with proprietary catalysts under high pressure, breaking down organic and synthetic material at the molecular level. Tests reportedly showed the device could convert plastics, food waste, old shoes, and other refuse into clean, usable fuel with over 80% efficiency. It could power generators for extended periods without producing toxic emissions, promising a revolutionary solution to both energy scarcity and urban waste management, a technology that could have reduced landfill size and dependence on fossil fuels. However, just 2 months after media coverage, the facility was raided, permits were revoked, prototypes were confiscated, and the engineers behind the project dispersed. No public explanation was given, and subsequent attempts to reproduce the technology failed due to lost schematics and regulatory barriers. The trash fuel converter remains one of the most tantalizing examples of a working energy solution quietly erased before it could reach the world. Zhang Heng's seismoscope. In 132 CE, Han Dynasty China developed the first seismoscope to detect distant earthquakes. Zhang Heng's device, a 6-foot bronze jar, had 8 dragon figures holding balls over open-mouthed toads. When an earthquake occurred, a lever inside the jar released a ball into the toad corresponding to the quake's direction. The mechanism remained invisible but consistently accurate. The internal system likely used a pendulum or inverted pendulum to detect P waves and S waves. This required understanding of inertia, wave propagation, and mechanical calibration far beyond what historians expect from the 2nd century. The device filtered background vibrations while responding only to seismic waves. Attempts to recreate the technology in later centuries failed.
DNA-targeted bomb. In the winter of 1945, a courier transporting from a biomedical research center near Posen was intercepted by resistance fighters. Inside an armored case was a leather-bound notebook labeled Project Blutiger. Unlike conventional weapons, this device aimed to identify and eliminate individuals based solely on their genetic code. SS eugenics scientists and molecular biologists designed a viral agent that remained inert in most people but activated when it encountered specific DNA sequences. The weapon operated as a delayed-action aerosol, with tables detailing protein markers, genetic polymorphisms, and ethnic identifiers. The delivery system was intended for covert deployment in urban areas, drifting silently through the air to strike only those with the targeted sequence. No prototype was recovered, and the researchers disappeared in the war's final weeks. Some suspect Soviet capture or relocation to South America. Verified notebook fragments suggest the weapon may have progressed far beyond theory, representing one of the most morally disturbing applications of science ever attempted. Its suppression may indicate completion rather than failure, revealing a chilling chapter where science was used to target humans by identity rather than action.
The Tunguska energy emitter, a speculative Soviet-era device theorized to be behind the 1908 Tunguska explosion. Reports suggest a mobile energy cannon projecting atmospheric discharges at immense power, flattening forests without leaving a crater. Redacted Russian archives mention early tests producing unusual ionization patterns, magnetic disruptions, and faint blue auroras. Eyewitnesses described pulsating columns of light, sudden gusts, and unexplainable pressure waves before the devastation, while wildlife vanished or behaved erratically. Scientists theorized the device experimented with atmospheric resonance and focused ionized energy beams. Anecdotal accounts suggest test crews experienced nausea, vertigo, and faint auditory phenomena correlating with discharges, hinting at early experiments in human-directed environmental manipulation.
The Nimrud lens. Around 750 BCE, a precise optical instrument was created in the Neo-Assyrian Empire, predating European lenses by nearly 2,000 years. The Nimrud lens is a piece of rock crystal shaped into a plano-convex oval. Rock crystal is harder than glass and requires careful grinding to achieve uniform curvature. Its focal length is roughly 4.5 inches, and it is ground to correct for astigmatism, a distortion modern optometrists only mastered centuries later. Discovered in 1850 beneath layers of the Assyrian Palace at Nimrud, Iraq, it was found among monumental winged bulls and reliefs. The lens could magnify the microscopic text on clay tablets. These inscriptions are so small that modern scholars need magnifying glasses to read them. Museums often classify it as furniture inlay. Physics contradicts this. A decorative button does not require optical-grade curvature, precise focal length, or astigmatism correction. Sir David Brewster concluded it was a functional optical device. Assyrian texts describe Saturn as encircled by serpents. Saturn appears as a point of light to the naked eye, making such descriptions impossible without magnification. If the lens were part of a tube now decayed, it could have served as a primitive telescope, demonstrating the Assyrians' advanced understanding of light and magnification.
The Nikola Tesla death ray. Tesla's papers from 1934 describe a device capable of concentrating immense electrical energy into a narrow beam, intended as a defensive weapon capable of destroying aircraft or incoming projectiles. The machine used a combination of tuned oscillators, vacuum tubes, and a large focusing structure to generate what Tesla described as teleforce. After demonstrating partial tests to military officials, the project was abruptly halted, and his equipment mysteriously disappeared. Government agencies allegedly seized the blueprints, citing national security. Tesla warned that if misused, the weapon could destabilize entire regions, but modern historians question whether any functional model ever existed. Enthusiasts and secret labs in the mid-20th century attempted reconstructions, yet results remained inconclusive, with many experiments ending in electrical explosions, unexplained equipment failures, or sudden lab closures under mysterious circumstances.
The Dogon star knowledge. In the 1400s to 1500s CE, in Mali, the Dogon tribe maintained precise astronomical knowledge for centuries without telescopes. They described Sirius as having a small, dense companion star called Po, invisible to the naked eye, orbiting every 50 years. French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germain Dieterlen documented that the Dogon depicted Poe's elliptical orbit accurately, matching modern astronomy. The tribe's rituals, such as the Sigi dance every 60 years, celebrated this orbital pattern. They also recognized the companion star's extreme density, equivalent to a white dwarf, long before Western scientists measured these phenomena. This suggests the Dogon observed celestial bodies using empirical methods or inherited knowledge passed through generations, preserving information that modern science only confirmed in the 20th century. The Lycurgus cup. In the 4th century CE, Roman craftsmen produced a glass vessel that changes color depending on how light interacts with it. The Lycurgus cup appears opaque green under reflected light and deep red when illuminated from behind. Scientific analysis revealed that the glass contains gold and silver particles suspended at approximately 50 nanometers in diameter. At this scale, the particles interact with light through surface plasmon resonance, selectively filtering wavelengths. The metal ratios are precise and consistent throughout the glass. Deviations in particle size or composition eliminate the color-shifting effect. This indicates controlled manufacturing rather than accidental contamination. Experiments show the glass reacts differently when various liquids are placed inside, altering optical behavior. This suggests the object functioned as a sensitive material detector, capable of revealing chemical shifts through visible color shifts.
The anti-gravity research programs. From the 1950s to 1970s, aerospace companies explored electrogravitics, attempting propulsion that reduced mass using high-voltage fields, a phenomenon known as the Biefeld-Brown effect. Some early experiments produced unexplained lift and suggested the possibility of revolutionary aircraft. Civilian research stalled, while classified military projects quietly continued. Documentation was limited, patents vanished, and replication proved nearly impossible without specialized equipment. Whether true anti-gravity was ever achieved remains uncertain, but the research vanished from open science, leaving only tantalizing clues, sparse testimony, and decades of speculation about how it might have changed flight, space exploration, or even military technology.
The chrono-phase projector. Created in the 1970s by a clandestine Japanese research group, this machine attempted to phase objects slightly out of sync with normal time. Small test items occasionally vanished and reappeared, while photographs captured overlapping temporal shadows and faint afterimages of objects in multiple positions. Volunteers reported memory lapses, visual echoes of themselves, and spatial disorientation. Engineers warned prolonged exposure could destabilize local temporal fields, causing accelerated aging, duplication, or phantom sensations of future events. Funding was abruptly terminated and prototypes dismantled. Alleged leaks describe minor time bleed events, objects defying gravity, clocks recording impossible sequences, whispers out of order, and personnel sensing echoes of conversations from the future. Some researchers reported lingering déjà vu after leaving, as if fragments of alternative timelines had imprinted into memory. The Black Knight Resonator, a secret satellite allegedly launched in the 1950s to study non-terrestrial signals. It reportedly emitted low-frequency transmissions affecting electrical grids, human perception, and animal behavior. Researchers observed electromagnetic anomalies, sudden atmospheric spikes, and communications interference. Documents describing its purpose were removed from U.S. and Soviet archives. Engineers noted psychophysiological effects on personnel, including dizziness, vivid dreams, heightened perception, and mood fluctuations. Logs described unusual readings resembling encoded patterns, suggesting intelligence or directional targeting. Temporary magnetic distortions in urban centers and brief instrument shifts implied the satellite could subtly manipulate local electromagnetic environments. All such documents were later confiscated, leaving the Black Knight Resonator a shadowy early experiment in global electromagnetic influence. Chinese magic mirrors. Between 200 BCE and 24 CE, the Han Dynasty produced bronze mirrors with hidden optical properties. These mirrors appear ordinary, with a reflective front and decorative back. When sunlight reflects onto a wall, the pattern from the back becomes visible. This occurs because the casting process creates tiny thickness variations. During polishing, thinner areas flex more, generating nanometer-scale bumps on the front. Light scatters differently across these bumps, projecting the back's pattern. This is an early form of optical projection. Artisans controlled curvature at a microscopic scale, creating consistent results across mirrors. Western scientists in the 1800s could not replicate the effect. Modern replication shows the mirrors required precise casting and polishing techniques.
The HARP Mind Control Antenna. Developed in Alaska in 1993, HARP was officially created to study the ionosphere, but rumors claimed it could influence human thoughts and emotions. The facility used massive radio transmitter arrays to send pulsed electromagnetic signals into the upper atmosphere, forming concentrated energy patterns. Conspiracy theories suggest these signals could trigger anxiety, depression, or altered perception over large areas. Alleged leaked documents link specific HARP frequencies to unusual brainwave activity, causing headaches, vivid dreams, and disorientation in volunteers. Whistleblowers claimed intelligence agencies monitored HARP to explore emotional manipulation and subtle behavioral influence. Skeptics reject these claims, but reports of strange atmospheric effects and abnormal animal behavior fuel speculation.